Makabi, this is going to be a very quick video about trust stones and the stats and how to read it on WOTV Calc. I want to be able to show you live how to read it, how to think about it. I think this will help a lot. First things first is understanding the 4 different terms we're going to use here. I made a post about this in the channel. I'm just re-highlighting this. There is the stone type that you can choose, and there's 6 different kinds you can choose from, or 7 different kinds. And they will give you a set bonus when you have 3 of a kind on the left side or the right side. So that's a set bonus. If you want to think of it as a type, that's number 1. Number 2, each type has a main stat. And so the luck type stone gives you a luck main stat. We'll get into more of what some of the other main stats are here, but that's what you need to remember. Every type of stone has a corresponding main stat. Now each kind of letter stone, I, J, P, A, T, G, has its own unique group of substats. That's this orange box. Now these substats are random in how they scale from their minimum to their maximum. The main stat does not. When you level 20 this stone, the main stat will be maxed all the time. The substats will not. You will need to re-roll using Gil, and the term is temper because it's the temper tab, and you'll be able to change what these substats are, and these are also important. And then the 4th one here is the passive ability. And this is what everyone complains about in terms of rolling. When you craft a stone, it'll give you a passive ability by default. If you like it, you keep it. If you don't like it, you have to dismantle the stone and rebuild it, and you are limited to 50 times a day. Okay? So that's what the passive ability is. Now, in terms of what stacks and what doesn't, this is extremely important to remember. The main stat stacks with everything. This number on all the stones will always add up to your character. The substats will also add up, no matter what, to all of your stats of your character. The set bonus, meaning when you have 3 of a kind here, will always stack no matter what. We'll get into the set bonuses, what the types are in a second, but this will always stack no matter what. What doesn't stack is the passive ability down here. So if you have something like slash attack up 7, let's say, well, if your weapon that you have equipped on the character has slash attack 15, those 2 will not stack. It will take the higher of the 2 only. The same can be said for multiple passive abilities. You cannot have 2 of a kind. They will not stack. You can only have 1 of a kind. So if you had luck up 10% as a second ability here, it would not register whatsoever. That's all you need to know for now. When we look at all of this from the perspective of WOTV Calc, which I highly recommend, this is going to be your new favorite page to always refer to. If you go to Other and Materia, it breaks out all of the stats about everything. And so I'm going to refer back and forth here. Now, the types of stones you can craft on the left, it's these 7 types, and there's 7 types here on the right side as well. Each one of these always craft groups of 3 because it will give you the maximum bonus for them. And these will always apply to your character and stack with absolutely everything no matter what. No matter what. So, if you decide to craft, we're going to use the example, the defense stone here, and you equip 3 of them, the set bonus is increased defense of 3 for self and increased healing power of 10. Now, when you're crafting your stone, the main stats, and this is the yellow one here, this main stat, will be unique to what kind of stone you craft. So if we craft the defense stone, it will give you a defense stat. Now, how much you get depends on the rarity. If it's a UR stone, that's this box here, you will get 4 defense when you fully max it. If it's an MR stone, you will only get 3 defense. If it's a defense stone, you'll get 2. So if you're crafting a group of 3 UR defense stones, you're going to get 4 defense on all 3 of them, so it's 12 total defense, plus the set bonus here. So it'll be 15 total defense on that set. So the difference between a main stat on a UR stone and an MR stone is really just 1 between the 2 of them. That's the main stats. And the same is exactly true for the right side. Now for the substats here, each letter has its own unique group of substats. So for the I stone, no matter the rarity, the I stone will always give you these 3 substats. Always. Now what changes, and again, substats is this middle section here. Now what changes is you will have to temper them to try to get them to their maximum values. So for this I stone, if you were to craft a UR version of it, it will randomize, it will give you an HP amount between 40 and 60, 4 and 16 for TP, or 5 and 19 for crit evasion. These all stack with everything no matter what. So it's in your best interest to keep tempering your stone until you get stats that are relatively close to their max, or at least for the stats you really care about. For instance, 16 TP is really not that great. Doesn't really matter what that number is. But getting close to 160 HP is a big difference between 40 HP. That's a big difference. So you're going to want to temper your stone till these stats are relatively near their max if they're important to you. And same thing for the rest of them. The J stone has a unique set of stats. So the I stone had HP, TP, and crit evade. The J stone has HP, TP, and evade. Again, these stack with absolutely everything. And so you want to make the stone and temper the stats so that your HP and your evade in particular is as high as possible if you're going for an evade unit. That's substats. Exactly the same, true left side and right side. When we get to the passives here now, each rarity of stone has different levels of how high your passive can get. So right now, this whole box that we're looking at the left side, this UR, is all the different passives you can get on a UR stone. All the way down to here. And then that's where it stops, and this is MR. Now the difference between the UR and the MR is that you can get to higher amounts of passives. And within each rarity, there's a little bit of luck when you craft the stone, which version of the passive you get. There's 3 of each kind, and one is significantly worse than the other. So for instance, if you roll an I stone and it's a UR, and you get HP of 2%, when you level that passive up to max, the maximum it will be 5%. That's not very good considering you can actually get up to 10%. So you would want to dismantle your stone and keep re-rolling until you get that HP of 4, because you know then that you can max it up to 10. And the same is said on the right side here. The one key difference on WOTV Calc, the sorting of this list is a little bit different, where you can see here, it groups all 3 HP of them together. For some reason, it does not group them the same here. So this attack 3 to 10%, there's also a whole other group down here, attack 5 to 15, and then it repeats at the here, attack 7 to 20. So on the right side of the list here, if you roll a stone and you get attack of 3, you know you got the worst version of it, because if you max the passive, you'll only get 10 attack. You're going to want to dismantle and re-roll that stone until you get attack of 7%, because you know you can get up to 20% attack there. And these are the ones that will not stack. So if you have something like Winter Coat, which has evasion of 10 on it, on the left side here, there is, let me just find it, I'm sorry about that. There is an evasion rate here. That will not stack with the Winter Clothes. It will take the higher of the two. This is the only thing you need to remember in terms of what does not stack. Everything else does. So when you look at the difference in stats between UR stones and MR stones, they're relatively close. There are some differences. So for instance, the highest HP you can get on a UR stone is 10%. The highest HP you can get on an MR stone is 7%. Quite honestly, that's not a massive difference, but it is a noticeable difference when you look at the main stats and substats. So for instance, on a I stone, the highest HP you can get on the substats here is 160. Well, the highest you can get on the MR is 120. If you multiply that by 3, that ends up being a big difference. So the stats aren't huge. It's really just the resources it takes to build them. URs are definitely the best. MRs aren't that much worse, but take a ton of resources to still build. It's not very economical. But in terms of understanding what all of this means, hopefully this was informative, and you can reference the picture that was pinned in our Trust Stone channel. See you guys.